So Jar Jar is Anakin Skywalker's father. Doesn't seem to make sense on the surface, but when you take into account the theories that say that Jar Jar might be Darth Plagues the Wise, a master of life and death, the whole thing starts to make a little more sense. The extended universe tells us that Darth Plagues has the ability to manipulate midichlorians to prolong life. As such, there are many theories that place him as the most likely candidate for fathering Anakin Skywalker, essentially willing him to be. In Revenge of the Sith, Darth Sidious reflects to Anakin about Darth Plagueis' life-extending and life-saving abilities, but doesn't seem to recognize the possibility that Plagueis could have used these abilities on himself. The extended universe and canon tell us that powerful Force users of both light and dark are capable of persisting after death in a ghostly form. It stands to reason that a being as powerful as Plagueis, with the specific skill sets he had, might be able to will himself back into being. Enter Jar Jar Binks. One of the first things that Jar Jar does in A Phantom Menace is make a 20-foot acrobatic force jump into a perfect dive, the kind of feat normally reserved for Force users in the Star Wars universe. Because Jar Jar is animated, because he's already been established as ridiculous, and because we don't really know much about his race at this point, we just accept it. We just accept that this creature can accomplish this task. But we never see any other Gungan demonstrate this degree of agility. In fact, later in A Phantom Menace, there's an entire battle scene dedicated to showing Gungans in combat, and we never see any displays of acrobatics anywhere near what Jar Jar achieves in this single jump. What follows for the rest of the prequel trilogy, wherever Jar Jar is involved, can only be described as a mind-trick puppet show, as Jar Jar leads the events on a crash course towards Anakin Skywalker and the death of democracy. The extended universe tells us that Darth Plagueis was a master of creating Force illusions. Known as Darth Plagueis the Wise, his intellect and use of the Force was unrivaled, creating machines that could interact with the Force in ways blasphemous to the Jedi and previously unconceived. Jedi mind tricks are an established ability in which Force users are capable of influencing weaker minds than their own. This description is very important because Jar Jar uses Jedi mind tricks on queens, captains of the Royal Guard, even Jedi Masters, and it is implied that Jar Jar uses this ability to hide his true nature from Darth Sidious, as he is routinely seen in his presence. This would suggest that Jar Jar Binks is both incredibly intelligent, incredibly strong-willed, and incredibly powerful in the Force. If this theory ends up intriguing you, I suggest you go back and watch through the prequel series again, or at least the scenes involving Jar Jar, paying close attention to his lips and arm movements, as they often mirror the actions of those around him. But I'll go through an abridged version of all the arm wobbling and lip wiggling that Jar Jar does throughout the series. While manacled, he moves his hands in time with the cadence of the Gungan King's voice as he argues with the Jedi. He motions at Qui-Gon, who proceeds to argue for Jar Jar's life. On their way through the planet core, Jar Jar motions at Qui-Gon and asks him to turn around, at which point Qui-Gon only seems more determined to move forward. After being force-stunned by Qui-Gon, Jar Jar mumbles incoherently and motions to the left, at which point Obi-Wan notices a cave and turns left. Upon reaching the Naboo capital, during the fight to rescue the Queen, Jar Jar seemingly force jumps off-camera, distracting the droids who are unaffected by his illusions. This goes unnoticed by the living creatures on the ground and the audience. As the newly expanded group enters a hangar to hijack an escape ship, and the Jedi fight droids, Jar Jar can be seen calmly and commandingly leading the rest of the group onto the ship. While on the ship, Jar Jar sabotages the hyperdrive, but we'll have more on that later. On Tatooine, as Jar Jar and Qui-Gon leave to search for a new hyperdrive, they are interrupted by Captain Panaka. Jar Jar waves his arm at Qui-Gon, who proceeds to turn around and speak to the captain. Jar Jar can be seen mouthing out Tanaka's words as he speaks, convincing Qui-Gon to take Padme along with them. A few scenes later, Jar Jar can be seen waving a hand at Padme, at which point she launches into an attack on Qui-Gon about how he's handling the situation with Anakin. This altercation ends with a moment where we can see Jar Jar mouthing, "I don't approve," as Padme says it to Qui-Gon. It's worth noting here that Padme is the queen of an entire nation. She happens to be a 16-year-old girl, but whenever she's involved with leading her nation, she doesn't seem to act it. She only acts it when Jar Jar is around her. In the scene where Anakin is doing final repairs on his pod racer, Jar Jar can be seen also making repairs on the pod racer, something that he has absolutely no business doing, based on everything we know about the character up until now. Later on Coruscant, Jar Jar motions at Queen Amidala during a moment of weakness and tells her about the Gungan army. Shortly thereafter, she decides to go back to Naboo and leverage the Gungan army to fight the droids. Back on Naboo, Jar Jar motions at the Gungan king, who proceeds to give him the title of Bomb Bad General. At the end of A Phantom Menace, in the culminating fight scene, Jar Jar can be seen tearing through droids with relative ease as he derps and flops his way through the battlefield. There's a new theory out there that Jar Jar's motion in these combat situations mirror a specific type of drunken master technique, taken in context with the fact that Jedi choreography for their fights was based on Shaolin monks and their fighting techniques. Well, it opens a lot of legitimate questions. There are plenty of other examples not listed here of Jar Jar doing shady things throughout the series. We've listed some of the more important ones, but the most important incident happens in Revenge of the Sith, when Jar Jar ushers in the end of millennia of democracy with the wave of two hands. Okay, so we've laid out a lot of information that suggests that Jar Jar is a powerful Force user, but what makes him Darth Plagues, and not just another apprentice of Sidious? Well, it's mostly predicated on the fact that Jar Jar's goals and Darth Sidious's goals really have nothing to do with each other. Jar Jar is on a crash course towards finding and retrieving Anakin. Here's a key example. Jar Jar is responsible for the sabotage that leads events towards Tatooine. Jar Jar is seen ambling around what is later revealed to be the ship's engine room. As R2-D2 and the other droids exit to save the ship from imminent destruction, R2-D2 bumps into Jar Jar. This is perceived by the audience as just an ill-advised comic relief moment. And while R2-D2 is certainly a comic relief character, this is based on his means of communication and his general demeanor. Otherwise, he has never been anything other than an effective hero throughout the entire series. In fact, I'd go as far to say that if any character in the entire series has his shit together, it's R2-D2. So an unplanned bump into someone is outside of the norms of R2-D2's character. R2-D2 doesn't bump into Jar Jar because he's clumsy. He bumps into Jar Jar because Jar Jar is currently looking at and destroying the ship's hyperdrive. Sadly, instead of being able to further address the sabotage, R2-D2 needs to hurry outside of the ship to save the day, save the ship, because R2-D2 has his shit together. Jar Jar Binks, being a native of Naboo, knows that without a hyperdrive, the closest planet to get repairs would be Tatooine, a planet he very desperately wants to get to. But couldn't Jar Jar just be there on the orders of Darth Sidious to retrieve a Force sensitive he noticed in the area? Well, it's important to note that in discussions between Darth Sidious, Darth Maul, and the Trade Federation leaders, not only does Sidious want the Jedi dead and expect them dead, but the last thing he wants is for Padme to leave Naboo, because he wants his treaty signed. Furthermore, no person of interest other than the Queen is mentioned. No mention of a Force user, no mention of a child. Anakin Skywalker is not a part of Darth Sidious's plan. Anakin Skywalker is someone who is incorporated into Darth Sidious's plan over time, as he reveals himself to be a worthy apprentice. Jar Jar, as a Force user, is acting independently of Darth Sidious, with his own knowledge of Anakin Skywalker's value. So why would Jar Jar bring Anakin Skywalker to the attention of Darth Sidious? Why would Jar Jar bring Sidious this powerful gift of an apprentice after Sidious's betrayal? The simple answer is, Anakin Skywalker is a Trojan horse. One of the defining abilities of Darth Sidious is to cloud the ability to divine the future and current events through the Force. Yoda remarks on this ability, noting that he is having trouble divining future and current events. It's one of the great difficulties of the Clone Wars, and largely responsible for the fall of the Republic and the Jedi Order. If Plagueis was truly killed by Darth Sidious, then it is likely that Plagueis is also affected by this awareness-clouding ability. At points throughout the entire series, it is established that Skywalkers have an innate ability to sense the presence and condition of other family members. Anakin senses when his mother is in trouble and rushes to her aid. Darth Vader often senses the presence of his daughter and son, and by the end, Luke is able to sense his father. I would suggest that as Anakin's creator, it is likely that Darth Plagueis is even more familiar and in tune with Anakin, more keenly aware of his circumstances and possibly even his future, than the relationship of any other Skywalker through the Force. In effect, Anakin is a beacon for Darth Plagueis, allowing him to keep tabs on his former apprentice, keep tabs on the Republic and the subsequent Empire. Anakin's very existence shows Darth Plagueis that involving Anakin with Darth Sidious will lead to the disbanding of the Republic, the destruction of the Jedi Order, the fall of the subsequent Empire, and the death of Anakin and Sidious at each other's hands. This would leave an empty throne for Darth Plagueis to inherit. It's important to note that the plan to overthrow the Republic and establish Darth Sidious as Emperor was originally the plan of Plagueis. Darth Sidious was meant to be a puppet dictator in place of Plagueis, with Plagueis running the show from the shadows. Upon killing Darth Plagueis, Sidious simply continued on with the plan. Knowing Darth Sidious for the betrayer he is, but still wishing to go forward with his plans of ruling the galaxy, Plagueis would be happy to watch and manipulate from the shadows, as he always had. Plagueis has proven himself to be nothing if not patient. I mean, he's not, even in the movies. But I mean, come on. Look at him. Fuck. Jar Jar? How is he a Sith? It's just too derpy. Well, here's the thing. Every Sith we have seen throughout the canon universe, Darth Maul, Darth Sidious, Darth Tyrannus, Darth Vader, have all been Force users, thoroughly based in the Sith tradition of hate and anger. But what does a Sith who embraces fear as the emotional core of his power look like? Would he use illusions and mind tricks to coerce and manipulate from the shadows? Would he do everything possible to appear innocuous, a bumbling fool? Would he shroud his combat techniques with misdirection, like a drunken master? Would he avoid the use of a lightsaber in favor of improvised weapons? Would he avoid direct confrontation with those he despised and those who have betrayed him in favor of a long-game plot that would lead to the complete demise of both? Would he dedicate his life to conquering death, to prolonging the life of himself and his loved ones, and in death cling desperately to what he once was until he could muster the energy to will himself back to life, choosing a new form whose appearance was inherently unintimidating, in a location where he could keep close watch of his betrayer? There's a good chance Jar Jar will never be revealed for what he is in a core movie in the series. Every interview I've seen with Lord Gookus has left me with the impression that he's very spiteful over the reception of Jar Jar. There's a theory out there that Jar Jar would have been the prequel equivalent of Yoda, a silly character who eventually revealed himself to be a master Force user. Lord Gookus has stated in interviews that the unexpected negative reception of Jar Jar caused massive rewrites in the rest of the prequel series. One theory points to Dark Dooku, Darth Tyrannus as the replacement character for Jar Jar. So the fight between Yoda and Dooku, which left a lot of people wondering, why do I care? This fight should have been between Jar Jar and Yoda. I just want to preface that I love Christopher Lee. He's a fantastic actor and performed admirably under the conditions. I couldn't be happier that he got a chance to make his mark on the Star Wars movies. That said, Darth Dooku lives up to his namesake, as Lord Gookus' way of taking a shit on the audience after their reception of Jar Jar Binks. So if Jar Jar or Darth Plagueis never shows up in any of the subsequent canon movies, This leaves us in an interesting position in how Jar Jar interacts with the plot of the prequel trilogy and the subsequent trilogies. If Jar Jar, or some further reincarnation of Plagueis, never appears in this series, what does that mean? If we accept Lord Gookas's cold feet as canon, accept the prequels as they are as canon, but accept that Jar Jar was originally intended to be Darth Plagueis and exhibits those features throughout Phantom Menace, what does this mean for the series as a whole? It would suggest that Plagueis' goals changed, that he no longer was interested in inheriting the open throne, meaning the only thing he was able to accomplish was the fall of the Jedi Order and the subsequent collapse of the Sith, a complete rebirth of the natural order of the Force, a blank slate to be reformed anew. The gray side of the Force. If this theory is true, and Plagueis isn't Commander Snoke, or isn't in the shadows behind Commander Snoke, if he doesn't make a move for the throne throughout the coming sequel series, then Darth Plagueis, not Anakin, is the chosen one, the bringer of balance. A being born through the Force who completely leveled the landscape of Force users and subsequently ceased to interact or disturb the balance. But I mean, Rey is holding his staff in the new movies, so hopefully, he's in those movies at some point. Like, the whole new trilogy. Plagueis should be in it somehow. J.J. Abrams, come on! Star Wars, give me more Star Wars. I want more Star Wars. Don't let them end. And Star Wars, if we should have wars, let them be Star Wars. Oh, Star Wars. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe! I put this video together live on my Twitch channel. I did all of the digital illustration on there, and some of the audio work as well. So if you're interested in the process, interested in seeing projects like this come together live, and interested in the Twitch creative scene, come hang out as I channel my inner Bob Ross, answering your questions and giving insight into my technique. If I'm not working on Derp Wars or another side project on stream, I'll be working on the project at the core of our efforts, an ambitious Fallout 4 mod called Rise of Rakshasa. Currently in pre-production as we wait for the creation toolkit, this mod will be a community effort, built live on stream with your advice and your contribution. The goal of this mod production is to create a new faction of ghouls, known as the Rakshasa, who worship the sun and the radiation it provides. The mark of a Rakshasa is the unique ability to channel radiation through their bodies. They're able to use this resource to conjure explosive blasts amongst a myriad of other offensive capabilities. They can also use radiation to augment their natural abilities, and at the highest level, these casters can use radiation to produce powerful illusions. What this means for you as a player is that you'll be able to leverage that red radiation buildup as a new resource, as a mana bar, in effect creating a lore-friendly blood magic system. If this project intrigues you, look for a mechanics breakdown video and a lore exposition video for Rise of Rakshasa in the coming weeks. In addition, look for a full Derp OST video in the coming months. As soon as possible, I'll be selling Derp t-shirts and prints, so look for links in the description.